Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I am here to talk to you about a very important topic. Our story is one, women of the past and future. What do I mean by our story is one? I mean the story of women's struggle, resistance, and hope throughout history and across the world. I mean the story of women's achievements, contributions, and innovations in various fields and domains. I mean the story of women's diversity, solidarity, and creativity in expressing their identities and perspectives. I mean the story of women's rights, dignity, and empowerment in shaping their societies and the world. Why do I say our story is one? Because this story is not only about women, it is also about men. It is about all of us who share this planet and this humanity. It is about how we relate to each other, how we support each other, how we learn from each other, and how we grow together. It is about how we respect each other's differences and celebrate each other's similarities. It is about how we recognize each other's rights and responsibilities and uphold each other's values and visions. Our story is one, but it is also many. It is made up of countless stories of individual women and collective movements that have shaped our history and our future. Let me share with you some examples of these stories that illustrate the power and importance of women's stories in creating social change. One of these stories is the story of Tahir Karachilang, a poet and a follower of the Bab, the founder of the Baha'i faith, a precursor to the Baha'i faith. She was born in 1814 in Kazan, Iran, and was known for her beauty, intelligence, and courage. She was one of the Letters of the Living, the first 18 disciples of the Bab. She also participated in the defense of the Baha'i uprising of 1848. She was captured by the Qajar forces and executed in 1852. She is considered a martyr and a heroine by the Baha'is and the Babis. Tahir Karachilang used her story as a tool for empowerment and change. She was a poet and a scholar who wrote about her spiritual and political views. She also challenged the patriarchal norms of her society and advocated for women's rights and emancipation. She was one of the first women to unveil herself in public, as a symbol of her rejection of the traditional gender roles and her affirmation of her identity as a Baha'i follower. She did this in Badasht, a place in northeast of Iran, around 1848, during the Conference of Badasht, which was a gathering of Baha'i leaders to discuss the future of their movement. She also changed her name from Fatima to Tahira, which means the pure one or the one who is worthy of praise. She inspired many other women to follow her example and to join the Baha'i cause. She is regarded as a pioneer of women's liberation in Iran and the Middle East. Another example of these stories is the story of Mona Mahmoud-Nejad and the 11 women martyred in Iran for their faith in 1983. They were members of the Baha'i community, which is a religious minority that has been persecuted by the Islamic Republic since its inception in 1979. They were arrested, imprisoned, tortured, and sentenced to death for their beliefs and activities. They were hanged on June 18, 1983, after refusing to recant their faith or betray their fellow Baha'is. Mona Mahmoud-Nejad was only 17 years old when she was executed. She was known for her love, joy, and courage. She was also a poet who wrote about her spiritual journey. Mona Mahmoud-Nejad and the 11 women martyred in Iran used their story as a tool for empowerment and change. They were faithful, loyal, and brave who stood up for their conscience, expression, and association, which are fundamental human rights that are often denied or violated by authoritarian regimes. They also faced persecution, harassment, and intimidation for their beliefs, opinions, and actions, which are forms of violence that need to be stopped and prevented. They also supported each other, educated each other, and empowered each other, which are ways of creating positive change and social transformation. They are remembered as heroes and role models by the Baha'is and other people of goodwill. The third example of these stories is the story of the movements of women in Iran who asked for freedom and a normal life given in many progressed societies and countries to women. These movements were triggered by the death of Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman who died in the custody of Iran's morality police for not wearing the hijab properly in September 2022. Her death sparked widespread protests across Iran, with women and men chanting slogans such as "Woman, Life, Freedom," and defying the compulsory hijab laws. The protesters also demanded fundamental changes in the political system and an end to the repression and corruption of the Islamic Republic. The movements of women in Iran are not new. They have a long history of challenging the patriarchal norms and laws that discriminate against them in various aspects of their lives, such as education, work, family, health, and politics. They have also used different strategies and tactics to advance their cause, such as legal reform, civil society activism, media campaigns, cultural production, and personal choices. They have faced many obstacles and setbacks, but they have also achieved some successes and improvements over the years. The movements of women in Iran are part of a global struggle for women's rights and dignity. They share common goals and challenges with other women's movements around the world, such as ending violence against women, ensuring reproductive rights, promoting political participation, and protecting the environment. They also have their own specific contexts and experiences that shape their demands and aspirations. They are diverse and dynamic, reflecting the different voices and perspectives of Iranian women from various backgrounds and identities. The fourth example is the campaign Our Story is one which is a global campaign marking the 40th anniversary of the execution of 10 Baha'i women in Shiraz, Iran. I would like to talk more about this significant event that has left an indelible mark on the history of human rights and religious freedom. This year marks the 40th anniversary of a tragic event that took place in Shiraz, Iran. On June 18, 1983, 10 Baha'i women were executed for their faith. These women, most of them in their 20s, including a young girl of 17 and a woman in her 50s, were hanged in Chowgan Square. This shocking event was met with consternation and outrage by human rights groups and ordinary people around the world. The Baha'i International Community, an international non-governmental organization that represents and serves the worldwide Baha'i community, launched a global campaign called Our Story is one to commemorate this event. This campaign is not just about remembering the past. It's about shaping the future. It aims to honor the executed women and the long struggle for equality lived by women of all faiths and backgrounds in Iran for more than 4 decades, which continues to this day. The campaign invites people to share their creative contributions, such as songs, videos, art, and poetry, to celebrate the diversity and solidarity of women's stories and to amplify their voices and demands. It connects the story of the 10 Baha'i women to the broader story of Iranian women's resilience and sacrifice for equality, justice, and truthfulness. These 10 women, who were hanged for their belief in a faith that promotes gender equality, justice, and truthfulness, chose to stand for their principles even over their lives. Their story is a testament to the power of faith and the human spirit. It is a reminder of the ongoing struggle for religious freedom and gender equality in Iran and around the world. The Our Story is One campaign is a powerful reminder that our struggles are interconnected. It shows us that despite the efforts of some to sow discord and hate, our story is a shared one. We are unified in our suffering and resilience, in our persecution and unwavering strength to combat oppression, and above all, in our collective aspiration to build a better world. Let us remember the 10 Baha'i women of Shiraz and all the women in Iran who have contributed to the long struggle for gender equality. Let us honor their memory by continuing their fight for justice, equality, and freedom. Let us ensure that their story is not forgotten and that their sacrifice was not in vain. And now, let me tell you about the other example. The fifth example of these stories is the story of Women's March Global, a network of grassroots women's movements around the world that advocate for women's rights and justice. Women's March Global is an international movement that was born out of the Women's March that took place in Washington, D.C. on January 21, 2017. This march was one of the largest human rights demonstrations in history, with almost 700 marches across the world and an estimated 4.5 million participants. The movement has since grown and spread to countries all over the world, with local chapters organizing mass actions in their communities. The mission of Women's March Global is to harness the political power of diverse women and their communities to create transformative social change. As part of the Generation Equality Forum in 2021, Women's March Global asked women, non-binary, and transgender people from every country, culture, and racial background what issues are most important to them. What should be done to solve problems, and what meaningful progress looks like in 10 years. The results are used to hold leaders accountable for promised gender equality actions. The movement encourages people to raise their voices collectively and spread the word for maximum impact. It provides resources and tools for people to organize or participate in mass actions and to start or join a local Women's March Global chapter. These are just some examples of the stories that make up our story, women of the past and future. There are many more stories that we can learn from and be inspired by. There are also many more stories that we can create and contribute to. We are all part of this story, whether we are women or men. We all have a role to play in this story, whether we are leaders or followers. We all have a stake in this story, whether we are beneficiaries or allies. Our story is one, but it is also many. It is a story of struggle, but it is also a story of hope. It is a story of diversity, but it is also a story of solidarity. It is a story of change, but it is also a story of continuity. It is our story, women of the past and future. Thank you for your attention.